The Republican Party, also known as the GOP, Grand Old Party, is one of the two major political parties in the United States. It has a long and complex history, with various factions and events shaping its development. While the GOP has a storied past, the party's history also carries with it a darker side, rife with moments of controversy, political shifts, and contentious policies. Stay tuned to Talk of the Week as we delve into the dark history of Republicans and shed light on critical events, policies, and figures that have shaped the party's legacy, both positively and negatively, and their impact on American politics. But before we dive into today's video, take a moment to click that like button and subscribe to our channel. Be sure to also hit that notification bell so that you won't miss out on any of our upcoming videos. Today's Republican Party has undergone a significant transformation from the days of Abraham Lincoln to the era of Donald Trump. To understand this evolution, we must look back to its inception in 1854, just 7 years before the Civil War. At that time, the political landscape featured two main parties, the Whigs and the Democrats, with a heated debate about the expansion of new states and the question of permitting slavery. The Democratic Party, primarily popular in the South, has embraced pro-slavery sentiments, while the Whigs are divided on this issue. Northern Whig supporters were concerned that an increasing number of slave states would wield excessive political power, potentially harming the economic interests of free white workers. This division became evident in 1854 when the nation grappled with whether the new states of Kansas and Nebraska should permit slavery, leading to the eventual collapse of the Whig Party. In the aftermath, former Whigs in the North united to form a new party dedicated to preventing the further expansion of slavery, and they named it the Republican Party. By 1860, the Republican Party gained significant influence in the North, ultimately leading to the election of a relatively unknown Republican, Abraham Lincoln, as the president. While Lincoln reassured that he wouldn't intervene in states with existing slavery, his anti-slavery stance and that of his party were too much for the South to tolerate. As a result, 11 southern states seceded from the Union, forming the Confederate States of America. The northern states chose to fight to preserve the Union, leading to the outbreak of the Civil War. Ultimately, the North emerged victorious, and slavery was abolished nationwide. Following the war, Republicans actively worked to secure the rights of freedmen in the South. Just 1 year after Lincoln's assassination, the party successfully passed the Civil Rights Act of 1866, which granted black citizens the same rights as their white counterparts. The Republican Party actively fought for black men's voting rights through new laws and constitutional amendments. However, during the Civil War, a significant shift began to change the young Republican Party. The spending of the government during the war led to the enrichment of many northern businessmen. Over time, these affluent financiers and industrialists assumed increasingly prominent roles in the Republican Party. They prioritized maintaining their influence and believed that advocating for black rights in a predominantly white nation may not be the most effective approach. Simultaneously, the South resisted these new racial reforms, often resorting to violence. Consequently, a majority of white Republican voters and leaders came to the conclusion that they had already made significant efforts to support black citizens in the South, and it was time to shift their focus to other issues. In the 1870s, the Republican Party decided to relinquish efforts to reform the South, allowing it to operate independently even if it resulted in the oppression of black citizens and the denial of their newfound voting rights. And white Democrats dominated the region politically. Fast forward to the 1920s, and the Republican Party has essentially become the party of big business. This alignment served them well during prosperous economic times, but took a hit when the economy crashed in 1929, marking the onset of the Great Depression. Franklin D. Roosevelt and other Democrats came to power and responded by significantly expanding the size and role of the federal government. This expansion aimed to combat the Depression and better provide for the American populace. Republicans opposed the rapid expansion, defining themselves in opposition to bigger government, an identity they maintain to this day. Going into the 1950s and 1960s, issues of race and the South resurfaced in national politics, with the civil rights movement striving to end segregation and secure voting rights for black Americans. The matter of civil rights was not strictly a partisan one. Instead, it was more regional with Northerners from both political parties supporting it, while Southerners from both sides opposed it. In 1964, Democratic President Lyndon Johnson signed the Civil Rights Act into law. In contrast, the Republican presidential nominee, Barry Goldwater, opposed it, contending that it expands the power of the government too much. A significant transformation unfolded. Black voters, previously leaning towards Republicans, predominantly aligned with the Democrats. Conversely, white voters in the South, once strong Democrats, grew increasingly disenchanted with big government interference. In the subsequent 30 years, white voters in the South shifted their allegiance to the GOP, turning the South into a predominantly Republican stronghold. By the 1980s, the Republican Party started to resemble the familiar GOP of today. Republicans elected Ronald Reagan, who promised to champion business interests, lower taxes, as well as traditional family values. Then, as the 21st century started, the United States witnessed a significant demographic shift with the influx of Hispanic immigrants, encompassing both those who arrived legally and those who came without authorization. This phenomenon triggers varying stances among political groups. Democrats and business leaders advocate for immigration law reforms, aiming to grant legal status to over 10 million undocumented immigrants living in the country. Concurrently, the Republican right gains popularity by adopting a tough-on-immigration stance. This divide became increasingly evident during Mitt Romney's 2012 presidential campaign, where he faced a substantial loss among Hispanic voters. Exit polls revealed that 71% of Hispanic voters supported Barack Obama. This outcome starts to reshape the Republican Party, causing it to be more aligned with the white voters in a nation that is becoming progressively more diverse. Fearing the impact of losing Hispanic voters on their chances of winning the presidency, Republican leaders took action in 2013. Some prominent Senate Republicans, including rising star Marco Rubio, collaborated with Democrats on an immigration reform bill designed to provide a path to legal status for unauthorized immigrants. However, this move triggered a strong backlash from the predominantly white base of the Republican Party, which sees the bill as granting amnesty to rule-breaking immigrants. This backlash worsens the growing mistrust among GOP voters toward their own party leaders. This sets the stage for the 2015 political landscape, where a figure like Donald Trump, an outsider businessman advocating for a broader wall with Mexico, gains prominence. While not a conventional conservative, Trump tapped into the resentment and distrust that many Republican primary voters felt towards party elites, along with the strong opposition to growing immigration trends. Despite facing opposition from party leaders, he garnered enough support in the primaries to secure the GOP's presidential nomination. This left the Republican Party at a significant juncture, grappling with the political challenges of the 21st century. There is a collective hope that a fresh wave of Republican politicians will emerge, aiming to transcend the label of being merely the party of white resentment and rediscovering the party's historical roots, as established by Lincoln. Hope you enjoyed the video. Don't forget to like this video and subscribe to our channel if you have yet to do so. Be sure to also hit that notification bell because we have more amazing stories on the way. We'll see you in the next video.